Welcome back to High Tales with the Lit Sisters. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marisa.
And we are on episode 3 of 3 for A Court of Mist and Fury. As a reminder of what you get with the Lit Sisters, we are two sisters who enjoy elevating our minds and talking about books. And those books right now are fantasy. We might talk about some sci-fi books, maybe some historical fiction. I'm going to try and get Marissa to read some romance. It's probably not going to happen. As a promise to you, though, we will not do spoilers ahead of where we are, but we are going to spoil the shit out of the first book and the first 2/3 of A Court of Mist and Fury right now.
I will also say that as millennials, we will also, spoiler alert, a lot of references to movies that we liked growing up. I can't help myself.
I mean, but I think a lot of people will understand our references.
And the people that don't, trust us, it's cool.
We're really cool elder millennials.
I don't say elder. I'm just a straight up millennial.
All right, so let's talk about, as we have our little elevating mind moment right now, let's talk about where we left off in the last book. One, Feyre, she outie 500 the Spring Court, right?
She did.
Whole lots of things have been going on, but essentially where we ended is they know the King of Hybern is starting to wage a war. We know he's got pieces of the cauldron, might have the cauldron, and we know that there's this book that can help us wield it, and we have one half of it.
The other half is with the Mortal Queens, which is where we'll start today, is the first interaction with the Mortal Queens.
Okay, so Marissa, for this last part of the book, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I think immediately after finishing this book, I texted you and I was like, we've got to speed this up because I've got to get to the next one, like, immediately.
Correct.
Like, I did not want to stop.
Yeah.
By the way, you are a very bad, like, trying not to spoiler, but totally spoiling it.
I've gotten so much better.
Yeah, but when I read this book, you were like, oh, you'll know the thing when it happens. And,
then I did do that.
And then you were like, oh, and I can't tell me when you get to chapter 55. And I'm like, come on, man. Now the whole time I'm like, okay, chapter 54, it's about to happen. Like, so...
Sorry.
It's okay. I understand why you're so excited about it because I would have done the same thing.
I just wanted somebody to talk about with it so bad.
And you battered me so hard to read with you that we ended up making a podcast.
Marissa's like, we should record this for proof of how you abuse me. This is one that, so I also recommended our father read this series, which Marissa... I don't know if she'll ever forgive me, in all honesty.
It was just like, I can't look at him in the eyes anymore, and he better not try to talk to me about it.
Just not all of the parts of the book.
Oh, we should have just told him, skip chapter 55. Nothing interesting happens.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't talk anymore because we just did what my sister did to me. Apologies, everybody who's listening. But we're covering it this session anyway, so get over it.
Oops.
Okay, so what was your reaction? Apologies. This one stumped you last time, too.
There's so much. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it is. I can't... You already think a bunch has happened in the book. A whole bunch happens in this first part, and then everything happens in the last 100 pages. Everything. What I was getting at before, sorry. When I told our dad to read this, he only took the first 2 books.
Well, I had the 3rd book. So I can't believe he went to Florida with only 2.
And I told him, I was like, you have to go to Marissa's house.
I live 6 blocks from you. He could have just stopped.
And I literally go, I don't want to give anything away, but as soon as you finish this book, it is a massive cliffhanger and you are going to want to start the next book. And he's like, no, it's 2 books. I haven't read a book in a decade. I won't get through these. He was texting me going, my books aren't coming. I ordered my own copy of books. Mine aren't coming until this date. I have to wait 3 days, like before he could start the next one. There's so much happens in here and so much happens at the end. I don't know if I can pinpoint one of my favorite, but you did actually last episode kind of start to talk about the fact that I really love the connections. And I think we've already established a lot of connections. And I think in this half, we get to start to see, we already know all these people. So we get to see it kind of all play out. I feel like we're getting into this is the family now. We're not building that part anymore.
Yeah.
Let's go do some shit.
Yes, the context, again, made this part better. So I'm glad I read it, but I was slow. I was very slow.
I wanted to send you that meme from Devil Wears Prada where she's like, by all means, move at a glacial pace. You know that amuses me.
Well, It took me a while to get there, but I got there, and now I want the next book immediately.
Yeah.
The queens finally deign to reply to this note that they sent a while ago. And we actually find out that Rhys has been sending multiple letters.
Yeah, so we realize they're real high maintenance. Like,
yes.
real high maintenance.
Well, they're playing alpha. Fair, because they have 0 cards. They have the book and nothing else. The queens meet them at Feyre's sister's house. Elaine and Nesta are both there.
Right.
The queens are like, we need a layout of the whole space. The queens, like, winnow in. And at this point in time, nobody realized that the queens had any magic whatsoever.
Right.
But they're all like, we have our ways.
I was like a little gift from your people to us.
We see the queens for the first time. There's like an elder queen who it just seems very cold. There are 2 queens that are opposite. So like one is light everything, light hair, light skin, like light dress. The other one is dark everything.
Yeah, I got it very much like yin and yang picture.
And then there was 2 younger queens. One was very beautiful, had golden hair. The other one was not beautiful, I guess.
They said she was the youngest, right? She just had like black hair. She said this queen was the only beautiful one out of all of them.
Yes. Doesn't that suck for all the other queens?
They're above it. They don't care.
So this is one of the things where I was like, I don't want my daughter to have the same name as somebody else because I don't want somebody to be like the hot one. Like, that's hot Sarah, and then you're just Sarah. So the queens come. This is the first time we meet them. They sit down, and we find out that the queens know a war is coming.
Yeah, they weren't surprised.
No, they weren't surprised. And they're like, yeah, this small sliver of land, we're not really prioritizing. You know, you can find your own way or somewhere else if you want. So Feyre told them about the horrible experience with this general who is one of many. Feyre was once human and can vouch for the experience she had under the mountain.
Right.
Mor tried, who is a legend, but not only that, she actually fought beside the human army, including Miriam and Dracon, which is another legend. I felt so bad for her because she was excited to go see it because she was like, these are the ancestors of my friends who have since died from 500 years ago.
Yeah.
So she went and she is like, I am the Morrigan. I am the truth teller. I am the friend of the humans. Like all of the legends, she's thinking that she's going to get this grand reception because she's in all human legends. And they're just kind of like, I don't really
They didn't care. They didn't care.
Give us proof and we'll still think about it. And then they just left. And so everybody's sitting there like, what do you mean more proof? We have a human that turned into a high fae.
Right. Don't you love that the queens leave and Elaine...
Yes.
Elaine's like, I hope they'll burn in hell. I'm like,
yes.
Woo! Elaine!
That was not expected from Elaine.
No, but I loved it.
But thank you for calling it out because what a bunch of jerks to
I kind of
be
feel like even if the nice one thinks they should burn in hell, then they should probably burn in hell.
It really is true. Yeah. So now they're like, shoot, what do we do? And we finally learn about Miriam and Dracon.
Yeah, Feyre's like, who's this Miriam?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
And so we find out that Miriam was half fae and half human. And how they found out who was slaves and not was what was the mother.
Yeah.
And so the mother was a slave. And so even though she had high fae in her, she was a slave. As a wedding gift, Miriam was given by the queen to her betrothed, who is Prince Dracon. Dracon came from a land where humans weren't enslaved, weren't things, possessions. And he was so disgusted that he actually called off the engagement and just let her escape.
Yeah.
Like, goodbye, Miriam, good luck. And Miriam actually left and actually met up with Jurian.
Yeah, she's trying to stay away from the queen, get off of her radar.
She's with the human. She's no longer a slave. Her and Jurian. So Jurian is the same person with amaranth and,
He has a future and body part jewelry.
Yes.
Big investment.
So again, we had called out earlier, something's important about him for them calling him out in this way.
We're finding more
out more about him. So he is the leading hero of the human army. And so she falls in love with Jurian. Jurian leads the human armies and actually meets up with a fae ally, who is Dracon. So Dracon and Jurian and Miriam are all fighting on the same side. But Jurian starts getting a little crazy. And this is where it goes into Cynthia and him pulling information. He just got way into killing Amarantha than the cause. Miriam broke up with Jurian, got together with Dracon, and they actually made it. And Moore was very particular. It's like she did not touch him until after she broke up. So there was no overlap. Moore was very...
The timeline is tight.
Yes, but there was no overlap. And so the whole myth is that Miriam and Dracon died at the end of the war. But we actually find out through this conversation that Miriam and Dracon are still alive. And they are living Fae and human alike equally. So they are living the utopia.
Right.
But Moore is like, we cannot tell them that. We promised them that they helped us in the war. We will never bother them again. They can live in
You can't use them. You can't use Miriam and Drake.
Yeah.
So Reese is like, what do we show them?
Valeris. And Feyre's like, no, we can't. And he's like, we have to.
We do.
So how are they going to show him Valeris? They come up with another plan.
So Moore's family are truth tellers. That's their power, right?
Yes.
Of the Night Court.
But again, the humans don't care.
Apparently not.
Well, if you remember, fairies, they think all fairies tell the truth. Can't lie.
I think the queens know. But yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So Moore's like, but there's the orb. What is it called? The Veritas?
Veritas?
The orb. The truth-telling orb. Where is it? The Court of Nightmares.
Of course. With Moore's father.
Which
we know the tragic story of Moore and her upbringing.
Yeah.
So.
Upbringing. More like Exodus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair. And so they all have to go to the Court of Nightmares. And Feyre, of course, wants to go. Tamlin would normally say no. She knows that. She's bracing for it.
Feyre sees Reese that night. And he's just... She can tell worried. He's worried. And right away, he's like, I am debating on whether you should go tomorrow night or not. And he knows right away that obviously that's not going to fly. Because, of course, she wants to be there. But he just confides in her that I'm worried about what you are going to have to be, what we all have to be, what I have to be, and she's like, I know you. I know you from under the mountain. We know all of these things. He goes into a lot more detail about Moore's story, though.
Oh my gosh.
Because she instantly, when this was the plan, kind of had to get herself together. Like, okay, I know what we have to do. But Feyre could tell there was more to the story here.
Yeah. And so, oh gosh. So what happened with Moore grew up and everybody could tell she was very, very powerful. And she was kind of hoping, with all this power, nobody's going to want to have a woman more powerful.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to want to marry me. But
Maybe
it was exactly the opposite. Everybody was like, I want that breeder.
Yeah.
And so basically she was sold to the highest bidder, which
I'll be honest with you, you know what world you live in. You don't think people are going to want to have you to have their babies? If you're powerful? Anyways, go ahead.
She was also a little kid of 75.
Child, please. Okay.
So she gets quote unquote sold, engaged to Eris, who is Lucian's older brother.
Autumn Court.
He is known for just being a big old, malicious jerk.
Autumn Court doesn't have the best rap to begin with, but Eris is, the biggest dick of them all.
No,
not bigger than his brother, or dad, I guess, but still.
So she ran away. And Reese, before he was High Lord, helped her run away. He's
like, come visit me at the Illyrian war camp. Yeah.
So they're at the war camp, and she's hanging out. She meets Azriel. She meets Cassian. She actually, everybody gets called away except for her and Cassian. She's like, that guy looks very good. And they did it.
But it wasn't like it was this true love thing. She knew what she was doing. She said she wanted her first time to be her choice.
Yes.
And she knew what was going to happen with her family.
Yeah. So she was
sabotaging.
She not only not mated in the Fae terms, but had relations with a lesser fairy.
Were you just about to call having sex mating?
We're talking breeding, mating, whatever. No. So that is what I was
become
talking about.
old English now.
I'm very uncomfortable saying
I know you
it
are.
directly. So I'm working my way around it, but then it gets redundant because there's only so many ways to say it.
Oh my God, that's so funny. All right.
Her parents are like, you just ruining yourself for marriage. And so they actually like torture her. Not staple, nail like a sign on her belly that's like, Eris, this is yours now.
Yeah.
And just dropped her right outside Autumn Court. Eris goes up and looks at her and is like, I don't want none. And they all leave her there to die.
Yeah.
And so she gets saved by Azriel, Cassian, and Rhys.
Yeah.
And they just protect her. Rhys becomes High Lord and is like, elevates everybody in his court.
Right.
And so she is finally like seen as an individual and powerful. But the people who are running the Night Court right now did all of that to her.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But we do also know she runs the Night Court.
Yes.
For Rhys. So this isn't the first time she's had to go back, but she has to psych herself up each and every time.
Yeah.
And if those are the two people we're dealing with, you can imagine what more has to become as well, right? So he's just like, you're going to see all these different kinds of people. It just worries him. Totally understandable. Feyre's like, bro, I got this. So the next day they're flying there and she's with Rhys and he's very serious and very worried. And she's like, all right, I'm going to, play with him a little bit, like loosen him up a little bit. And so she cracks a joke how they were talking that your wingspan tells you what other features of the male anatomy. And he chuckles. And so she gets a laugh out of him. And as soon as that happens, ash arrows come out of the sky. And they're veering around and they land. And right away, Rhys is like, all right, take Feyre here. And she's like, no. I can track them. I'm a
better tracker than all y'all.
Yeah, ash arrows come from the human realm. I might know where they're from. I know all these things. And he doesn't even think about it for a second. What I loved, he's like, good point. Okay, you two go here, we go here. Boom.
Yeah.
And they spend their hour, instead of getting ready for the Night Court, trying to track down the poachers. Which they don't find, but that's okay.
They do not succeed, but then they get dressed. The whole mood changes.
Yeah.
And so they're walking into this Court of Nightmares. And again, Amarantha built her castle or whatever under the mountain to look like that. And to be honest, like how they described it and stuff, they're like, okay, Amarantha's like Hell Castle.
Disneyland compared to Disney World.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this is just amazing and crazy and beautiful and a lot of like snarky
Any of you
people.
Disneyland fans, I'm sorry. Okay, I've never even been to Disneyland. I'm just saying like the smaller version.
Trolls, go get her. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
okay.
Another thing I wanted to point out. So when they walk in, right, Moore is obviously looking banging. Feyre, very similar dress to what she wore under the mountain.
But this time it's consensual, and so she's can be her.
But what I loved is she talked about Cassian and Azriel, and they didn't just have the 2 siphons on their gauntlets anymore. They had 7. So they had already talked about how much like power you have to wield just one. Most just have 1, and they have 7. Very intimidation move, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Moore walks up to the top and is like, our master is in a horrible mood.
Yeah.
So opposite of how they normally act.
Who they are. It's totally
And so Feyre sits down like a little pet, and in comes Rhys, and like he just like unleashes like the power that he usually tampers down, and she's like, holy cow, everybody is terrified of him.
Well, you could feel it. She said you could feel like just his power entering the room and walking towards.
Well, this is where
she was like, that's kind of hot.
Well, now that she knows underneath that bad boy, he is really a good boy, she's like, okay.
What's hotter than that?
Well, I'm again a good boy person.
I'm a good boy person.
So Rhys sits down, he's cocky, taking his time, doing whatever he wants, and like points his finger at Kerr, who is Moore's dad, and is like, come here. And then just starts talking and like just wasting his time while he just sits there and like waiting for like direction. In that period of time, he's like teasing Feyre, is like, come sit on my lap. The face on Moore's dad is just like of complete disgust.
Yeah, he's like petting her. He's like, do you like that everyone is watching you? Like they're just totally doing this whole
They're
show.
playing a game for everyone.
Yeah.
And so then Rhys is like, she's thirsty. Go get her something to drink. And like he goes and rushes and then comes back with something and then just has to sit there while they like make out, but they don't make out. But he is rubbing her where he did not rub her under the mountain because there was paint proof.
Yeah.
And he got very close. To the point where they had to communicate in the brain with each other. And he had to be like, it's fine. It's a normal reaction.
Yeah.
Like, because she was just in her head being like,
it's
traitor.
your body reacting. It's fine.
Yeah. She's like, just traitor.
So I thought that's what he had to tell himself with Amarantha. Like, that made me sad.
Yeah, that is. I didn't put that together.
But he's like, it's okay. It's just your body reacting. Because, like, you torture yourself with, did I want it? Right? Was it consensual? And it's like, no, it still wasn't. It's just your body reacting to the way things are supposed to be. I felt sad.
Well, she did feel guilty about the one who will not be named yet. Tamlin.
So obsessed with him.
I'm angry. Okay.
So they're doing a good job at being the distractant.
They are.
While Moore and Az go get this orb. This
Yes.
truth-telling orb that I don't know how to pronounce what it is. But it's okay. We're going to breeze past that.
Yes. And so Az finally comes, which means he found it. He has it. And, like, him and Moore flirt, like, oh, we were with each other the whole time. And Kerr is just, like, disgusted by the world.
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, phew, mission accomplished. Let's go.
Strut out of here.
Let's strut out. And Kerr, like, is dismissed and gets up to leave and calls Feyre a whore.
He said you'll get what's coming to you, whore. Like, it's a threat plus an insult.
Well, and whore is a very, very sensitive word for Reese, as we know.
I think for everybody.
No, I throw that around like crazy.
No, you do.
When I play horse. Okay, but I digress.
Yeah.
So Reese
He ain't having
loses his shit.
Yeah.
And he, like, slowly breaks different parts of Kerr's
arm and hands.
Like, it was like one of those, like, every syllable he broke a new bone and just was like, don't ever talk to her like that again.
Well, and, like, I love it when a villain is, like, puts you in so much pain, but is telling you to apologize, but you can't talk because of all the pain that you're in, so that they can keep causing pain.
Yeah.
That's basically what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then he looks at him and he's like, if I find out you had a healer come and fix you, I will re-break everything again and then take off your head.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And so he cannot, like, he's just going to be crippled and in pain forever.
So, I mean...
So he lost his shit a little bit.
We see the dark side, you know, for everybody.
So I will say if Feyre had the note, she would have been like, dramatic.
So dramatic.
So dramatic. So Reese lost it.
Yeah.
He needs to decompress. We've all had those days at work where we hope the commute's a little bit longer so that way we can calm down.
Except for, like, his girl's with him in the commute. That
Yeah.
He has to carry her.
I mean, tis what it is.
Yeah. Well, he winnows to a lake. I don't think he could be around, like, Az and everybody like that right after that. So Feyre just kind of pops up and they're at this lake and he's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I just freaked out like that. I know that was a lot. Breaking Kerr's hand just because he called you a whore, but, like, I would kill anyone who harmed you. He's, like, laying it all out there for her. And remember, she goes, you're my friend. I was like, ouch, Feyre. Like,
So I'm sure she meant it nicely.
I love you. Thank you. She kind of goes into, I think she took it as he wasn't going to include her in things. He wasn't going to
Don't stop.
Tamlin.
Don't cut me out.
Yeah. So he essentially is like, don't compare me to him. Feyre, that's what pisses her off. She lashes out and she is basically like, listen, at least I don't wear a mask in front of everybody. And I'm not just talking about what we saw in the night court. I'm talking about your friends too. I know things. You'll tell me things that you won't even tell them and let them have a part of you. Then she digs the knife in and she's like, because who would blame them for walking away if they really knew everything? And she sees him, like, wince. And I just remember thinking, like, ouch, ouch. Every time, like, Feyre kept saying that, like, she just kept digging in. And he's like, I want to go home. And as soon as they get home, Feyre, like, goes out on a balcony and she feels bad instantly.
Yeah.
For saying it. And she waits for him out there.
He don't come.
And he doesn't come. He doesn't come. And then he avoids her.
Yeah.
For days. She's writing them these little notes, trying to be cutesy. She flat out tells him, I need to talk to you. No response. Then she kind of is like, tells him he's being a little bitch, basically. She's like, stop pouting. Well, I mean, I felt this. When you really fuck up with your words, like, and you really, you make someone feel bad, then you're kind of like trying to make light of it. Can you just... No. Yes. Can we just breeze past this? Never mind.
Nothing to see here.
I was having a bad day too. Hey. And so I think that's what she was trying to do. Like, just play. Yeah. Play with me.
It
so
works I can that one sorry. Time. Yeah. But not this time.
Yeah.
She cut too deep.
Right.
So she goes over to Amren. Amren just says...
the softest one of the bunch.
Yes, of course. Well, the one that she knows where she lives and can bribe her with blood.
Amren was surprisingly pretty soft.
The way she talked about Rhys, it reinvigorated the, respect I have for how he leads. She, he was a ghost after Under the Mountain until you made him come alive again.
Yeah.
That, broke Feyre's heart. And she's like, oh, shoot. I shouldn't have said so much. My bad.
Well, she told Amren, she's like, he thinks he's going to be the villain. Because remember, in part of that, he was like, I know how this story is going to be written.
Yeah.
The Dark Lord steals the Summer Court's bride. And he's the villain. And she's like, what I forgot to tell him was the villain is usually the person who locks up the maiden and throws away the key. But he let her out.
He did.
That was good. I thought that was cute that Amren helped her, too. Cute. Amren is rolling her eyes right now that I called her cute.
Yeah, she would be really pissed about
Amren.
that.
It was...
So now we find out about
Starfall.
We don't know what Starfall is. We just know it's a celebration. Mm-hmm. Everybody's getting all fancy. There's an outfit that just fits perfectly with the theme, just surprisingly in her closet.
The description of her dress.
Again, you do description because I needed the meat.
No, it was just stars. I just saw diamonds, but no real lines of the dress. Mm-hmm. Just pools of starlight at her feet. I was like, oh, I want to see this dress in real life. She still hasn't seen Rhys at this point, so she's anxious to see him again. He kind of shows up and is just like, hey.
Just standing right next to her.
Yeah, nothing happened. And she's like, what is this all about? And then the stars start falling out of the sky. And they're all falling down. We found out they're spirits that are on their way to another location nobody knows. Oh. And on this day, every year they come and fall out of the sky. And it's really pretty. And at this point, this is when Rhys is like, hey, you want to go somewhere more quiet?
I've got a great spot for this. And so he actually opens up a lot to her because she does feel bad.
Well, right away, she's like, I'm sorry, I was saying that more to myself than to you. And he's like, no, you were right.
You were right.
Yeah.
Right. But this is the first time that she actually hears the real story about why Rhys and Tamlin are so upset. She has bits and pieces, but what she finds out is Tamlin's brothers were just as bad as Lucian's brothers, just as brutal. And, Tamlin was the younger of them. And so he obviously was showing signs that he was going to be the High Lord. So they were just even worse, right? And so as they go through, Rhys saw that in Tamlin, and being a High Lord himself, and somebody that nobody wanted to be a High Lord, he kind of took him under his wing, and they became friends. Rhys mentored Tamlin. Tamlin grew up under his tutelage. Tamlin's father was intimidated by Rhys and did not like that they were friends. One day, Tamlin told his dad where Rhys was going to be. Well, it turns out it's where Rhys was going to meet his mom and sister. That day, Rhys actually was running behind and was like, oh, they can just meet me all the way at the camp. I need to finish this training. What they didn't know is Tamlin's brothers and Tamlin's dad actually had murdered his mom and his sister. And he got there too late.
Not only murdered, put their heads in boxes and let them float down the river to the next camp and took their wings and hung them up in his study.
Very brutal, right? And in response, Rhys's dad was like, let's go kill them. And Rhys is like, yes, I'm in. I'm going to kill all the guys, but we don't kill women and children. So we're not touching the mom.
Yeah.
And so he goes, he's murdering brother, and the dad goes and murders Tamlin's dad. But Rhys sees that not only did Tamlin's dad get murdered, Tamlin's mom did too.
Yeah.
All right, and then Rhys's dad starts walking towards Tamlin's room to murder Tamlin. And Rhys is like, no, we said no women. We're not any better than them. We're done with the killing.
Enough killing, yeah.
Tamlin opens the door because he woke up, smells that his family... He woke up. I had to give that context. Who knows with him? So Tamlin opens the door, smells the blood of his family, and just kills Rhys's dad right there. So Rhys's dad got killed primarily because Rhys made him stop. Like, otherwise Tamlin would be dead. So
really
now,
give a fuck. Honestly, his dad
I don't either,
sucks.
but that context is interesting. So now the two new High Lords are looking at each other, having
Well, they feel
just
the power come
murdered each other's families.
Yeah.
And so that is all of that background of why they hate each other. Reaction.
I mean, Tamlin's still a pussy.
Agreed.
Like,
But-
he's been a pussy forever. To me, it was validation. Like, of course your little bitch ass told your dad and brothers and went with them to kill your friend that took you in because you were a little fucking weird, in all honesty. Now I'm the one who's mad at Tamlin. And then, of course, Rhys and his dad should go and kill Tamlin and Tamlin's brothers, and I think they should have killed Tamlin too. I mean, if it was us, like, Tamlin was there. So
If it was us, are we going to get in a blood match?
If someone killed you and Mom on your way to meet me, you best believe I would kill everyone who was there, down to the horses they rode in on, okay?
So I'm more of the path of I would help collect evidence.
That cannot be legally binding, by the way. If I kill people and their horses, that's not an admission of guilt.
Okay, so this backstory is crazy.
Yeah.
And very, very sad.
I did find it interesting that Rhys was like, and then I ran.
Yeah, of course.
But it's almost comical to me now how mad Tamlin was at Rhys.
Oh, yeah.
How can you be mad? You should be like cowering. Rhys was allowed to be that mad.
We find out also, well, first of all, they have really cute moments where, like, some of the Starfall, like, souls, I guess, like, splatter on each other's faces.
I
and
know.
it's, like, glowing.
It was kind of cheesy, but it was cute.
I thought it was very cute.
Of
it
course
made
you
my
did.
heart flutter.
I like how you don't like all the relationship stuff, but then you find the star hits him in the face, and oh my god, you have it on you.
It's not the relationship stuff. It's the while I'm sitting over a meal or like the day-to-day interactions with it.
You don't
I'm
like you don't like their internal dialogue.
I don't want to read about them eating food. Unless we're talking about war at this dinner.
That is not very Taurus of you, actually.
Well, sometimes I can surprise you. Okay, so we find out at Starfall tomorrow we're going somewhere else. And we are going to the war camp.
Some are.
Some are going to the war camp.
Yeah.
Including Feyre and Moore and
For a little bit, at
Rhys
least. Yeah.
and Cassian.
Yeah.
So they show up and this interaction with Lord Delvin.
He wasn't a lord. I don't know what his title is, though. You're right. It's
Yeah.
like a general captain something. He runs the war camp.
Yes. So
And he ran it when Rhys and Cassian and
Yes.
Ezra were there, too.
and he references Cassian as a dog.
Yeah, he treated him like shit.
And he is like the leader of the entire army, and he's standing next to his best friend, the High Lord.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, "So you brought your dog? He already
Yeah.
came here earlier this week." It's like, man,
Yeah.
the balls on this guy.
Lots of balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big old ones.
Yes. And so they start talking about how, like, why aren't women in the training room and stuff like that? And they're like, we got to do chores. And
After they do their chores. And Cassian's like, I told you they train and
Yes.
then do chores.
But they're really just fighting this guy.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was of the mind, well, you're the High Lord, just make them.
Yeah.
But then later you hear more of like,
It made sense later.
he's like the only one that's even agreeing to do it.
Well,
so,
and then when you found that out, you're like, oh,
oh,
well, if that was easy.
I am so glad that they're not at a different work camp.
Right. And then you also find out that he is the one who let two bastards and a High Lord, half Fey, half Illyrian, do the blood rite.
Which we find out is like the rite of passage
Yeah.
for any warrior.
Right.
And some don't like
Make it back. Yeah.
some don't make it. Yes. And it's because not only do they kill each other, but they just die from the elements. It felt very Hunger Games.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah. So Feyre and them are staying at his old house when he grew up. Mm-hmm. But they need to train. So everybody goes their way. They're still trying to get into the mortal, like the queen's layers to just sneak in. So Azriel's off doing spy stuff.
He's having trouble, too.
Cassian's trying to get them to treat women fairly. Moore's got to go check on good old mom and dad and see how the fingers are.
Did you go to the healer cur? Did you go?
Better not. And so the day before, Feyre like almost burnt everybody to a crisp. So he's like, we've got to go farther out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They fly to a like clearing far away. They land somewhere where
to the point
there's
that
nothing.
they're gonna have to stay out there.
Yeah.
They have to go far, far away.
So there's nothing around. She even like goes and walks into like the stream. So if she lights on fire, there's water all around her. She's very cautious.
She doesn't trust herself very much.
And so Rhys is like, I'm not getting my shoes wet. Like, I'm watching you from here. And so she's like sitting there trying. And all of a sudden she hears Lucien. And Lucien was like, we've been hunting for you for actually 2 months, 2.5 months. And he's got some sense.
I was like, hunting?
Yes. Poor use of words, Lucien.
Yeah.
But, and so he's like, come on, we don't have very much time. Feyre's like, takes a step back, is like, no, thank you.
Yeah,
like, I don't want to. And he's like, Feyre, like, stuff is happening. You need to come now. I need you back. Tamlin's going crazy. Tamlin's being nuts.
She's like, not my circus, not my monkeys,
yeah, and
dude.
she's like, I told him I left willingly. I'm gone. I'm not going back. And like kept taking a step back. And so Lucien's getting kind of irritated and is like, come on, Faye.
Well, she knows as soon as he touches me,
I'm gone.
We're gone.
I'm gone. So she gets, like, she starts transforming. And this is a power that she hasn't been testing because she thinks of Tamlin.
She shapeshifts.
And so she shapeshifts, but she doesn't shapeshift into a beast. She shapeshifts with wings.
She has wings.
And talons. And so she is an Illyrian warrior. So, and she's like, you gave up on me. You didn't do what you should have done. And she's like thinking in her head.
She's like, you were my friend. You picked him.
And she was thinking in her head, like, Cassian wouldn't, like, he would punch Rhys and be like, don't lock her up.
Ask questions later. Yeah.
And so she's just getting angrier and angrier. And she's like, don't come back for me. I left. And I'm staying here. And then Rhys, like, shoots over and is right next to him. And the reason they had to, like, he can't use magic because they can trace his magic.
Yeah.
So just the fact that he's not in his suit and has no wings, she knows, oh shit, he's using magic.
Right.
So that was...
But he's got to keep his rep.
But he's got to keep his rep up, you know? And so finally Lucien's like, Faye, seriously, Feyre, come on. It's like, no, see you later, bro. And Lucien left.
Yeah.
Reluctantly left.
No, she's like, you tell Tamlin, you keep trying to find me, I'm gonna freaking kill all of you.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't come back here again. That was a crazy exchange. And I kind of felt bad for Lucien.
I kind of didn't. I was annoyed with him.
So
that he was still making excuses. When he knew, the looks he was giving her when all that was going on, he knew it was wrong. Now is when I thought he would be like...
But what are his other options? Is to be like, okay, can I stay here then because that's where I live?
That's a good call. He doesn't really have a lot of other options. And maybe this was the event that made him go, shit, she's right. She's right. You know, I don't have this family that you guys have in the Night Court to support yourselves and stuff like that. But when she made that comparison to Cassian doing the same thing, he wouldn't. She's right. And so it was like this difference between, no, this is what it means to be really be a family and to be a friend. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just not my people.
Yeah.
But he had no other options.
I know, but I got turned off by him getting like mad at her about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you've changed. What did he say at the end? Like, you've changed or you're making a mistake or something like that. And she was like, well, when you spend enough time trapped in the darkness, you start to like it or something, like it stares back or whatever.
And I love the like sense of pride she felt through the bond of like, he was definitely like, hell yeah, Night Court.
Yeah, what she said.
And the fact that he didn't really say anything, he was like, oh, Feyre will take care of you. I'll just take care
of my nose, pick off the invisible lint.
The fact that he's always picking off invisible lint, it makes me want to start doing that.
It means it's very high lord of you.
And like, as I get older, I'm just going to start picking off I'll do it to other people, too.
I was just going to say, that's more condescending.
Yeah, I'll do both. Okay, so when I'm picking off, like, I'm being condescending.
It'll be our cue. I love it. Okay, so now they're far enough away that they have to stay at this inn. Mm-hmm.
And the end is disgusting, and there's only a tiny, tiny attic
There's only
room.
one room left.
Yes.
Reese is trying to make himself all tiny, right? Little. His
he has
power's
his
muted
wings
down.
back.
Okay, so they walk in the bedroom, and there's only one bed. What did you feel?
Well, first of all, I felt you guys both need to shower. You're disgusting.
Oh my God.
I know, I can't help myself.
I was just like, yes! Here we go. Here we go. But no.
No, they didn't shower.
No, but
Because I know that's what everybody else was thinking about the shower.
So, Feyre asks Reese,
Yes.
did you think I was going to go with him? And Reese's reaction was just like, I heard the whole thing. I knew you could take care of yourself. And I had told myself basically, like, if you did, I would find a way to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And she's like, and if he would have grabbed me, he's like, I would have torn apart the earth. I was like, yeah, you would have. Yeah. But the whole little interaction in the end, you know, they're soaking wet, right? Yeah. So there's this tiny room, like they can't even, there's not even a table. It's like just the bed. It's sloped ceiling. Yeah. And he's like, I'll go get us food. When he's the one trying to like make himself not be seen and all that, but I'll go get food. And when she said she like peeled off the, clothes and got all ready, and then he comes in and he changes, and she's like, I'm not looking, but I can feel it.
Well, she's already seen his thing.
We're not talking about that, Marissa.
Okay, I'm just letting you know.
What I loved about that night, lots of things, right? Lots of connection, obviously. My favorite part is that they did the tell me the truth, right? And he's like, what are you thinking? And he's like, I'm thinking that I can't stop thinking about you. And her one was, I can't stop thinking about you either. They said it much more eloquently and beautifully than that. Mm-hmm. But you were like, they do both like each other. And then
I love that you love that. You're going to hate this.
Oh, God.
You're going to hate this so much.
You guys, we might not make it past 5 episodes.
We will. Just get to where my head's at.
Okay.
This feels very soon. I know. I told you you're going to be angry about that.
We should be recording this for YouTube at this point so that you can all see my face.
I'm very angry at Tamlin, but she died for the love of somebody. I feel like she would still be mourning, and it would be very awkward in this bed.
That was
basically I can't stop thinking about you.
That was basically a lifetime ago. And at this point, it is months later. Even in human world, I would have moved on. Okay. And I would have been trying to fuck Reese. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I can look at you. I don't know if I can.
But the emotional be like, I was uncomfortable.
It was more of an admission than like a line though, right? She was admitting I can't either. And we already know that she hasn't been able to.
No, fair. I'm okay with it.
So then they're kind of getting hot and heavy. And not hot and heavy, but it's getting serious, the conversation. He goes, what do you want? I kind of felt like Notebook. What do you want?
What do you want?
And so then how did you feel when she's like, a distraction?
I actually felt really bad for Reese. So he was basically, I can't stop thinking about you. Like, as close to I love you as you can.
He's used flowery words. This is her first time really reciprocating a little bit, right?
And then he's like, what you want, baby? And she's like,
a distraction.
Just help me get mine.
And you know about Amarantha. I just felt like that was time number 2 where Feyre was like selfish. And I know she's going through a lot, right? Going from human to immortal is like, that's got to be a lot.
Yes.
So I will say understand.
That was probably her internal excuse to... I'm not going to betray my feelings for Tamlin because it's not emotional.
She was also in her head going, like, she knew it was a lie right away.
She knew
Can he tell I'm lying? Remember? She was like,
yeah. Okay.
He did a good job.
He was a very good distractor. Mm-hmm. And then they woke up the next day and he's like, do you want to shower or do you want to leave? And she's like, that bathroom was disgusting. Let's get out of here.
I like how that's the one you want to bring up. Like that.
I'm sorry, I could not get past it.
It does not surprise me.
I could not get past it. After being all cold and wet, not being able to shower, and then doing that, and then still not being able to shower, I'm like, okay.
She's very into hygiene.
I was around during this thing called COVID. Okay, so they are leaving. They are going back. Reese knows that he used a little bit of power. He's like, it's probably not that much. We're cool. But we should probably head back and get some help. Yeah. Right? all of a sudden, shoo, 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 Reese gets hit with a bunch of arrows. And she looks at it.
like that sound effect was they were whizzing by. It should be more like...
Oh, the first 3 whizzed by, and then that one hit. You did the...
It hit his wing and his leg.
He has like 7 arrows across his wings, multiple in his body. But what he does is he flings and throws Feyre as far as possible as he's going. And you just hear like a growl. And she is like falling through the air because he
used his
throw.
magic too.
Yes.
Like kind of, yeah.
And so she had to actually use her magic to stop. And then she's like listening and trying to be like using the bond saying, where are you? Where are you? There's nothing on the other end. And so she's like, okay. And so she actually like in these moments, she can use her power. Yeah. And so here she is, she's winnowing from tree to tree. She can only go a little bit, but she can go just enough to go branch to branch. And she's just listening and she's tracking and she starts hearing things. She starts seeing the ash arrows that missed Reese. And so she starts grabbing him and putting it in. She notices there is poison on the arrows.
Right. Well, then she picks up a scent.
Yeah.
Right? And then she can tell that the scent split.
And so this is why I'm okay that they didn't shower.
Because how do you know which one to follow?
Because they took Reese's clothes one direction.
Yeah.
Which was the logical place that you would think that they would go.
Yeah.
They went in a more quote-unquote dangerous direction, but she knew that was the way because she could smell herself on him. Because he didn't shower.
You make it sound so much more taboo than it is.
That was taboo. That was a lot.
Or did it save his life?
It saved
Maybe.
his life
We don't
too.
know yet. Let's get...
It can be both. Okay.
She finds him in that cave.
Like, she is putting all of the arrows together, and she, like, builds herself, like, multiple knives and stuff that she's using these for. And so she goes through, and she's, like, counting the guys, and she's just winnowing back and forth into this cave that they're in, and gets all the way to where Reese is, and, like, just starts from the inside out killing each one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, or not funny, because people are getting murdered. The interesting thing is she's like mentally saying this is so much different than the fairies, the innocent fairies.
Yeah.
Because these guys effed with.
Yeah.
She didn't say my man, but she's acting like my man.
Right. Right.
And so she ends up killing all of them. She's like, we've got to get out of here.
Like a boss.
Yes.
Mind
very
you.
much. Very much.
Like a boss.
Reese has arrows everywhere in him. They like took the ones out of his body, but he's got multiple arrows in his wings.
And he's got those.
And he's got shackles on.
Yeah.
So she needs to get these shackles off. They need to get out of there and she needs to fix them, right? And so she gets the shackles off. They like winnow very slowly away because she can't go very far. And she's like, it feels like pulling him through mud trying to winnow. So she gets as far as she can, finds a new cave, and starts cutting off these arrows. As she's cutting them off, she's telling a story to distract. Do you remember what story it is?
I do. It's one of my favorite parts.
So she's trying to distract him. Mm-hmm. And she tells the story about when she was back in the cabin with Elaine and Nesta and her dad. Mm-hmm. And Elaine had saved up enough money to gift her with paint.
Right.
So this is the first time she's actually able to paint. And she paints all over the house. And she tells him the story about how she painted the dresser. Elaine, she paints these beautiful flowers.
Right.
Because Elaine she loves gardening, beautiful butterflies, whatever. For Nesta has always had like this internal fire.
Yeah.
So she just does flames. And that's Nesta. And then for her, she did stars at night. And she's telling this story as she's slowly sawing off.
Well, she's saying, I think I was always trying to find you guys. I think this was always my home.
This was my family.
Yeah.
Which feels better than you're such a good friend.
Thank you.
But
you're my friend.
You're like home. You're like my family.
Yeah.
And so she's slowly like sawing these. She gets all 7 of them out. And like he like slumps to the ground. And he still is not doing well. So she like puts a blanket over him and is like, okay, let's go to sleep tonight. Wakes up the next morning. He has a high fever. Mm-hmm. So she's like, oh, shoot. Looks at all of the scars and it's like, it's not healing. The blood's not clotting. He is slowly dying from this poison. Who would have an answer of what's going to happen?
I mean, we've already, What, like it's hard to catch a surreal? Like, let's just go find one.
So she goes back. She, of course, the huntress that she is, remembers, oh, I think there was a stream this way when I went to save Reese's life and all of this stuff. So she sets up the trap. Mm-hmm. She has her cloak because she found out from Alice, you don't need a dead chicken.
No.
You can just use a cloak.
Any gift will do.
Yes. She gets the cloak. She sits there and waits. Almost immediately, boom. And it's like the first time I had to wait a couple hours.
I feel like the surreal likes her.
She wanted to help.
She did.
And so she's just like...
I like how we both call her she, too. Because we don't know if it's a girl.
Fair.
I feel like it's pretty obvious, though.
Yes, but now I feel bad because we're not using proper pronoun.
All right. We could call her they, them, but I'm pretty sure it's a woman.
Okay. I'm getting woman vibes also.
I am, too. Yeah.
Okay. So she is like, what... do I need to do to fix it?
What is it?
What is it?
What can I fix?
Yeah.
How can I fix it?
And the surreal starts with all this like ambiguous, like, the thing that you need is in the forest. And she's like, I don't have time for this. Tell me what I need. And she's like, okay,
it's
dude,
bloodbane.
It's bloodbane. Just give him some of your blood.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, thanks, man. And then as she walks away and she's like, oh yeah, and the pink flowers by the river, that will also help your mate. Dun, dun, dun.
And Feyre was like, wait, what?
Excuse me.
What'd you just say?
So she finds out that Rhysand is her mate. Which means that they are something closer than, like, marriage won't even do anything to unbreak this bond.
What I love is her commentary back to the surreal, like, that means I'm his equal. How is that even possible? I'm human. Yeah. And her, I'm going to call her her. Mm-hmm. Her response was, he's the most powerful High Lord that ever walked the earth, and you're made of all 7 High Lords, unlike anything else. They're both unlike anything else.
Oh, yeah.
How are you not a match?
Yeah.
So Feyre, in this moment with the surreal, I think you feel like equal parts anger and shock.
Well, I think also a sense of relief, like, I don't need to be guilty anymore.
I would feel that way.
Yeah. She lets the surreal go. She goes back to Rhys. She rips her arm and, like, puts it up to his face and is like, drink it. No love. None at all. Just, like, pissed off.
And I love her description of Rhys the whole time. He's like, what? Okay.
Yeah, like, he's like, oh, shit.
Doghouse. I did something.
And then she, like, throws the flowers at him and was like, chew on that. And he's like, everything going okay over there? It's like, this is making me feel better. Thanks. And she's like, how long have you known I'm your mate?
He's like, for a while.
His face just dropped. Who else knows? He's like, Mor and Amryn. And he's like, and Cassian and Azriel probably suspect.
They suspect it.
She's just like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. Well, and like, here's the thing. Do you remember right before he got shot with the ash arrows, he said, I have something else to tell you. So I thought of this right away where I was like, oh, not right away. But you know what? Like when she was saying this, I'm like, oh, I think he was going to tell. Maybe he was going to tell her.
Yeah.
And then he got shot. Am I making excuses for him?
Well, I feel like yes, you are.
I am.
But we made more excuses for Lucian, so fine. Since they're
and
mates.
Tamlin, you know?
Well, Tamlin didn't deserve it.
All right.
Okay, so she finds out. She's pissed. They get back finally.
They went home. Yeah.
They drop to the ground. She just walks away. He is literally like coming back from death.
Yeah.
Like
out in the street in the Illyrian camp.
And she just walks away and everybody gets up and like runs to Rhys and her to see if everybody's okay. And she just looks at Mor and is like, get me out of here.
Yeah, get me out of here. Get me somewhere safe and quiet.
And so they went out to this cabin in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And Mor says, nobody can winnow in, no matter who. Nobody can enter unless you're, like, part of the family.
Right.
And she's like, am I part of the family? Can I enter because I'm the mate?
Yeah.
And Mor's like, oops. Now you know. He wanted to tell you. Our bad.
You just stay here and think about it, though. The house will provide whatever you want.
It's cool, man.
Can we get a shout out for this house?
Yes, it is very...
Like, don't you want to live there for a little bit? I want a vacation. I need a momcation at this cabin.
Well, I was thinking more this is a good second house.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't want my kids or my husband there. I
I
want to go there and have the house cook dinner and draw me a bath.
But how much easier would it be to raise children with a house that you could do that? Like, you could have the kids, but only have to do the good parts.
Ooh. I like the way you think.
I know, right? Okay. So, in all of her rage, like, she actually gets a lot of information from Moore over the next, like, couple of days.
So Moore leaves, says I'll come back and check on you in a bit. She's kind of putzing around, finds some paint. And so she starts painting, kind of like she did the cabin, all over the place. Day or two later, Moore comes back up to check on her, bring some food, even though the cabin provides everything that she needs. She didn't really need to bring food. I think Mo was just like, you want to have some girl time? And what I loved, Moore walked in and was like, you painted all of us. Like, you know, there's like bat wings, and then she's like, and then she has the eyes over the door frame. And then remember, she's like, paint mine and Amren's. I want them to know we're always watching.
No, she painted Amren's, and she's like, no, put mine next to hers.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
And then she ended up painting everyone's, but she couldn't paint Reese's.
It's been 5 days.
It's been 5 days. She's painted probably everything. Moore actually painted a little, like, stick figures of everybody, which is funny. And she hears a knock on the door because Moore keeps knocking, and she's like, okay, Moore came back with more food. Opens the door, and there stands Reese.
Yeah.
And he is, like, shivering in the cold and kind of, like, giving her puppy dog eyes, like, pretty please don't shut the door on me.
Yeah.
And she just, like, lets him in, you know, and she realizes he can't use magic. So he actually flew for probably about a day and a half while he's still healing to get there.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. Grand gesture.
I mean,
noted.
Joke's on you, Reese. She was already internally talking about how she was going to come home, but, you know.
Whatever, man. It's the thought that counts. So she just basically is like, tell me everything. Are you hungry? And he just, like, looks at her shocked. And we find out in that moment that it is actually a pretty big deal when somebody is mated. And then the first time the female offers the food is basically accepting the bond.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
Which is really fucking lame, actually. I'm not going to lie.
It is what it's back. Sarah J. Maas actually references back multiple times. Like, it goes back to our feral instincts from when we were animals.
But, like, okay. But then Feyre's like, all right, tell me the story, and we'll see if you get to eat this.
Yes.
So I'll cook, you talk.
Yes. So we find out how much more horrible everything with Amaranthum was because he was, of course, separated from his brothers, Cassian and Azriel, and his whole unit got captured.
Right.
And to get information out of Reese, of, like, where the troops are and stuff like that, she, like, hammered his wings into a board to stay outright and, like, slowly killed each and every one of the people in his command to just torture him into telling her.
Right. And we also find out here that Tamlin's dad and Amarantha were friends.
Yeah.
So a lot of this was to get back at Reese's dad.
Yeah. So she was like...
For killing her friend.
You killed my friend.
Yeah.
You know, you're just some random High Lord. I don't care.
Yeah.
And you just, like, she's just torturing him.
Yeah.
Right?
She's pretty awful.
Yes. So he is, like, slowly making a plan to murder her. And he's like, okay. He figures out all of the times of the guards and where she'll be. And he's like, I'm murdering her tomorrow morning. And he says, I'm just going to rip my wings out, which will ruin my wings, but I don't care anymore. I'm going to murder her before she goes into this battle and everything. That day, Jurian comes and actually starts the battle with Amaranthum. And so the whole time Reese is watching this battle between the two. And he's like, I was going to murder her tomorrow, man.
You don't get to murder her. That's
and
mine.
He sees Jurian die. He sees Amaranthum steal bits and pieces of his body, evidently. And then she goes away. And so this makes it even worse, all the stuff that happened under the mountain with Amarantha.
Well, she came back and 50 years later or whatever and didn't remember him.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Didn't remember him at all.
And so he, like, hated her from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so, again, Amarantha throws this party. He tells his whole court of dreams not to come because he was going to murder her.
Yeah.
And he didn't want his friends to see or talk him out of or anything.
Yeah.
So he goes there and he's like, didn't smell his cup. He drank the wine when she toasted and the spell and potion was in there. And he slowly felt his power slipping away. And so he goes into everybody in the Court of Nightmares and like reroutes it so that way they don't remember Valeris and the Court of Dreams.
Right.
He sends a quick message and puts a huge like safety zone shield over Valeris. And he says, don't come here. We're in trouble.
Yeah. You can't. Yeah.
And he like makes them stay there. And so this whole time that he's like servicing her is because he used every inch of his power to shield Valeris.
He not every inch of it necessarily. He used a good portion, but then right after she slaughters half of his court, the night court, right?
Yeah.
Just to show that she could.
Yeah.
And that's when he decided, I'm gonna draw her attention to me.
Yeah.
So that she doesn't poke any further.
She doesn't look anywhere
because
else.
as soon as she finds something that's important to me, she's gonna take it away.
Yeah. And so in the grips of this horrible situation where he's having to pleasure a woman that he wants to murder every night.
I like how those things make you uncomfortable, but then you do this like...
So he starts seeing these visions.
Yeah, about 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So he sees these visions and
they're like foggy.
It's a girl painting.
Yeah.
And he's thinking, this is my salvation because somebody out there is happy. There is a place that's happy.
Yeah.
So I can go through this torture if somewhere in the world that's happening.
Right.
And then he sees like pictures of the drawers.
Yes.
That Feyre just said. And he said he pushed a picture of stars to her.
Yeah.
Like just thinking like, oh, what if that got to her?
Yeah.
And it did. That's why she painted the stars. I know. And so then he like, it becomes less foggy and he realizes.
Yeah, he saw the bog and she was scared and terror and it wasn't foggy anymore. And he's like, oh, it was the wall that was fogging it. She's in Perinthian.
Yeah.
And then he could tell from kind of the background and some of it that she was probably in the spring court.
And then he saw Tamlin. He makes up this excuse. He's thinking, okay, there's the fire, right? Which we all know what happens in the fire, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to go there and I'm just going to check on where Tamlin is and make sure he's not going to break this curse that you put on him. Mm-hmm. And really, I want to see what this human looks like, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes. So that was all like very planned.
Yeah.
In terms of him seeing her, him being drawn to her, and like her calling back to him and everything like that.
Remember he said, oh, look, you found her for me. I've been looking for you.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, so that, and I will say when I first read this, I actually went back and read that whole interaction all over
you did?
again.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So then he tells her that he thought that was going to be it. Like he'd get a little bit to see her. And when she called back to him, like she also knew there was something. He knew he could never talk to her again because now she was like in danger, essentially. So he had vowed at that point that was it. That was a gift. That was a little gift that he was given. He got to see this. The next time he saw her was when he went to breakfast and she was being glamored. And he's like, and then I saw you in love with him in my enemy's home.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine all of these things are going on under the mountain? You now know what he's really shielding and hiding and what he's been going through for 50 years. There's these little glimmers of hope. And then he's like, you were looking at him with your little love eyes.
You were smiling at him.
And he's my enemy.
So he was jealous.
He got real jealous. Yeah.
Well, and he said, I was harsh and I was harsh on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to scare you and I wanted to scare the crap out of Tamlin.
I wanted you to
protect you.
Get out of Perinthian. Yeah.
So, oops, I might have started that shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. When her neck snapped, he said he grabbed the bond, and that's what tugged her back. That's what she told the bone carver, is that she knew there was a line. That was the mating bond.
Yes.
That brought her back.
So it wasn't the bargain bond. It was the mating bond.
There's no bargain bond. That was silly.
We find out all of this stuff, and then we find out that last part of Under the Mountain where she came out and they talked, and he like goes backwards like in fear. And remember, like you were like, you know, I thought it was something he
saw her power.
He saw her power. I thought it was like he went somewhere else and was seeing something before. Mm-hmm. Turns out that is when the mating bond clicked in place for him.
Right.
And so the first time he sees Mor in over 50 years, all he says is, she's my mate.
Yeah.
And so that's how Moore knew. She helped him through it. Cassian and Azrael didn't know why, but this whole like couple of months, he's like drinking himself to oblivion and just sad because he's like trying to not think about his mate with his enemy. But he was like, if she's happy, I'm happy for her. So he ends his story, and Feyre just turns around, puts the soup in front of him, and says, eat up.
I like how then but I mean that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
And then I like how later she was like, I was actually gonna tell you as soon as I opened the door that you had me at hello.
Well, and she was like, I'm honored. Because she knows that's like he
that
doesn't
really
feel
beautiful.
like worthy of being the hero. He knows he's the villain.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm honored to be your mate.
That was sweet. That made me swoon a little bit.
And then they did a lot of stuff.
That made you very uncomfortable.
I was also like, they're doing it all in paint.
I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly distracted by the paint as well.
It was one of those things where it's like, well, and you know, like, picturing it in your head, like, you're seeing bright splatters of blue and green and stuff, but they're rubbing and stuff.
That's so what I was like, it's brown.
It's all, like, browny black, like, not attractive paint.
Yeah.
But they truly loved and embraced each other's love feverishly.
There were some really beautiful moments there. Like when Feyre's bond snapped into place. And she said that, like, their scents became one. Like, there's a special, like, mating bond scent. I thought that was pretty cool.
I skimmed over that part.
Let me talk about these then, because I don't even know if you read them. Feyre cleaned his wings off, the paint, which was probably brown, like we said. But she said it wasn't. But I thought that was very beautiful, because they had those little, like, playful jabs at each other about the sensitivity of the wings and all of that.
Well, and how men don't let anybody touch their wings.
Yeah, like, they're trained, like, kill
Never.
Now, ask questions later.
Yes.
And then the one I loved was when she was so happy, she started glowing. And then they talked about how, you're laughing, they talked about he let his magic go and he was pure night and she was like pure day. And when they kissed, it was mist and shadow. And I'm like, oh, that's part of the title of the book. Mist and not shadow, but fury. But you know what I mean, like mist. I thought it was very
furious, so it works.
What I loved the most about that, so that part was kind of cheesy, but I loved that he was like, I just get to brag that I can make my mate glow because she's so happy.
This guy.
Oh, it was so cute. And then how they couldn't keep their hands off of each other and how he was like, you know, this is normal. And she's like, what? And he's like, the frenzy. I was like, oh God. And the fact that he had to fight with Cassian when he got back.
Oh my gosh. So when they come back, Cassian just cracks me up because he's like,
so funny.
He's just picking. He's like,
he knew.
He's like, wow, what were you guys doing? He's like, you look pretty tired, Reese, but Feyre looks like she could handle another one. Should I go take her somewhere? And Reese just loses it. And it's funny because he did it on purpose because Reese was on edge.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to like get him to calm the F down before we go into battle.
And he's just baiting them.
And he does. They beat the crud out of each other.
But I guess when you heal super fast, is it really that big of a sacrifice?
But I think it was very smart of Cassian also because he knew Reese couldn't do any magic. Reese has admitted that in a hand-to-hand battle,
Cassian would kick his ass.
Cassian would kick his ass. So Cassian ain't no fool.
Very true.
Yes. So we find out that the queens are ready to hear the proof.
Yep.
We have the orb. Mm-hmm. We have the place. We have the time. But now we have a mated pair that are quote unquote in the frenzy period. So this is getting risque. So they go, and there's even less queens than there were before.
Yeah,
so
only 2.
Before there was one missing because she was quote unquote sick. Now the other ones just didn't deign to visit. Mm-hmm. Basically just not looking good in terms of, are they really going to make this decision today? You know, very respectfully, they present the orb. After Feyre was already like, I really don't think we should do this. like, am I not proof enough?
She did try one more time. Yeah.
And it didn't work. They're like, no.
You had to try, though.
And I think Feyre in her head was like, they're never saying yes to anything. If I'm not enough, they're not saying yes.
I mean, we all know Nesta already knows.
Yes. Nesta's already steaming in the corner. And so there they see beautiful Valeris, how it is an untouched city that is full of art and music and people of all different shapes and sizes living in harmony. Like, basically utopia.
Right.
And he said, this is my kingdom. This is what I protect. This is who I am. I'm not the person you heard about. This is me, right? And they said, ooh, I don't really care.
Yeah.
And everybody was, like, fighting them, like, don't do this.
They basically made it obvious that they put them on a rat race for no reason. Like, they had already made up their mind before that.
It didn't matter. And so, you know, Moore tries to convince them. Nesta, like, begs them for help.
Yeah.
But, like, aggressively.
And she Nesta's it up.
Yeah. I mean,
but she was begging for her.
And the thing that I love here is what Cassian says to Nesta.
Right?
Yeah. So
and he talks to just her. He stands up and is like, I fought in a war with humans. I will protect you. And didn't you just see it, like, flat out? Like, she is, like, steel, but, like, done and defeated. And he just takes just her. Not talking to the queens.
Yeah.
Not talking to anybody else. I will fight for you.
Did you also think, oh, crap, Cassian's going to get murdered in that little peninsula? Because I was like, when he said, I will protect this house, I was like, dude, you're going to die.
Oh, in the house?
Yes.
No, I did not think that.
Okay. Well, I was a Debbie Downer on that.
Like, you were like, it's happening now.
No, I didn't think it was now.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was now. But I was also like...
I wasn't thinking singular, but
can you help transport everybody out instead of protecting the land? Because I don't think the land is where you should...
Oh.
That's not going to help anybody. Anyway, like, Rhys is just silent.
Yeah.
And everybody's, like, begging. Like, Feyre's like, why aren't you trying harder? The queens leave, and they're underneath this, like, little handkerchief is a box. And they look back, and they're like, oh, the golden queen leaned over at one point because she dropped her handkerchief.
Yeah.
And Rhys, that's when he quieted down. So it was definitely because he saw it, and he was like, everybody shut up.
I think he said he felt it. He felt it. Yeah.
This
no, it was just a little note saying,
freely.
She just left it with a note saying, I believe you, that there is actually a better world, because he wrote that letter saying, I'm in love with a human girl, and I see a world where we can all be together. And she's like, I believe in it too. Don't trust the others. The sixth queen wasn't sick.
Ooh. Okay, we have both books. Amren's doing her thing.
Yeah.
We are
deep decode.
Deep decode.
Yeah.
We are training. We are enjoying Valeris. Cassian and Feyre are out for a leisurely stroll through the city.
And what I loved about this moment was how Feyre tells Cassian she really appreciates what he said to Nesta. And he's like, I do what I do. That's how it's supposed to be. And she's like, no, she will never forget. Defended her. She actually feels everything. She feels too much and loves fiercely, basically. And she would tear up or shred the world for anybody. And she will never forget that you said that. Right as they're like having this kind of beautiful moment, Feyre starts to feel the water shift a little bit. Cassian starts to feel things. And I remember her being like, oh, Tarquin, like, I wonder if he can feel the water. On the horizon, there's definitely, it looks like an Illyrian war, like, camp coming and flying, but he's like, they don't know about this. There's no routes this way. So he's yelling at Feyre to get back to the townhouse, and she's like, no, I can help. I can, she was gonna, like, I think, shoot them with frost and stuff like that so they'd fall to the ground. He's like, no, you gotta tell everybody else. So she starts running back to the townhouse, and she sees the Golden Queen. So she saw the adder drop the Golden Queen on a lamppost. Her head was shaved, her eyes had been plucked out, but she was still essentially alive. So very much a message that the queens flipped on them and told where they were, and they know who gave you the book. She was a traitor. Very, very big message there. She looks up. Cassian and Azriel is helping, like, defend one side. Armin is defending another side, and she's just seeing, like, her kind of pointing at people, and they're just dying. She sees different soldiers and the adder going towards the Rainbow of Valaris, the heart of Valaris.
Yeah. So she creates these, like, water wolves, and they, like, start chasing stuff, and she's, like, running as fast as she can to try to defend this area, which is like the artisan area.
Remember, she sees the one lady with her
Yes.
pole out there trying to defend her shop.
And she looks in the shop and there's just a lot of innocent people like hiding in the shop. And so these water wolves go and like jump on the people, drown them.
Yeah.
And then go and get the next person. So she's just taking people out and she starts winnowing and she sees the adder. And so she winnows, trying to get closer on this roof, on that roof. And she hears like Reese through the bond, like, where are you? Where are you? And she's just like, I'm about to, like, give me a second. I need to concentrate. I need to concentrate. I'm learning winnowing right now. And so she like just slams down her shield and just like ignores him. And so she's there, drops on top of the adder and just starts getting him and like killing him. And she just sees the sea so dark it's almost purple coming over. And she's like, that's my mate. Like where he is just like murdering people that are in the shadow that are bad people. Yeah. Like just with his essence. And he comes up and, like, sees her. She just finally killed the adder.
But the way she kills him is so badass. Yeah. So she's, like, stabbing him. She's like, this is for Reese. This is for Claire. And then she's like, this is for me. And she winnows away right before he hits the freaking ground. So they're, like, falling from the sky. And then it's just like,
yes.
And then Reese sees it, and he's like, wow, that's my lady, I think.
Yes, he really is. And so then the whole, like, rest of the night is just cleaning up, making people safe. Just a very sad couple of pages. And they're like, okay, we've got to do something about this.
Yeah. What's the plan, guys?
To go get that cauldron. Amryn has figured out the incantation in the book. Mm-hmm. Feyre is made so she can go and nullify the book, like calls to like.
Right.
Azrael this whole time has been finding out where they're keeping it. So they know that it's on the lower level of the castle.
He knows where the guards are. He knows that kind of logistical stuff.
He knows all of the time. We also know that Reese cannot go in.
Right. The King of Hybern will know.
Probably expecting Reese.
Right.
Right? And so they actually have this plan where they're going to winnow in. They're going to go nullify the cauldron. If it can't be nullified, they're going to bring it out with them.
Steal it, yeah.
And they're going to be out and in before anybody can tell because they've got exactly a certain amount of minutes before the shift change.
Right. Mo, Az, and Cassian, and Feyre.
So they go in there. They are inside the chamber. They find the cauldron almost immediately because Feyre can just feel it. So they get to it. It's on this like pedestal, right? Mm-hmm. She goes up to this daz, I think is what they call it, and puts her hand on it and she can just feel the power. And she's got one side of the book in each one of her pockets. Mm-hmm. And she like has the incantation. The book is like, bring us together, bring us together. And she's like,
splitting the power.
It's not going to be enough to nullify the cauldron if I don't put them together. And Amryn said, don't do one thing.
I feel like this is the same with Alice. How Alice told that Amryn's like, no. Don't put the book together because not only will you like send the power out to the King of Hybern, but you're going to wake up some shit that's been asleep for a while.
Yes.
And you don't want to do that.
Like my people.
Like maybe my people. I don't know. Maybe me. I don't know. Yeah.
So, but she does it anyway.
But she's like, fuck Amryn. She don't know what she's talking about. She puts it together.
She puts the book together and she like can't even see. She feels the power zooming through her, through the cauldron. And she memorized the incantation. So she starts doing it. It goes black. And she, like, wakes up with Cassian shaking her, like, get up. As they're trying to see if the cauldron can go, she realized she was, like, bleeding out of her nose. She couldn't nullify it. She had passed out trying. Reese winnowed it.
Yeah.
Because
he sensed the danger and they weren't able to get it.
Azrael
Azrael kind of pulls her away and she's like, what's going on? Like, give me a second. And Reese like kind of grabs the book and takes it away, and then
who comes walking down the steps into this throne room? Jurian
comes down the stairs.
Yeah,
and they're like, fancy seeing you here.
Yes, and he was just like, "Where's Miriam?" And Moore's like, she died.
Moore, like, basically, she met the love of her life and her mate, and she never thought of you again.
Boom.
I loved it. I loved her little zing.
Yes. And so they realize that they can't winnow out.
It's like Jurian's like, I was supposed to distract you while the king got wards in place, and they couldn't leave unless they were in pieces or he wanted them to.
Jurian gets a knife right in Azrael's heart.
Oh, it's it's the ash arrows with the bloodbane.
Yes.
On it. In his heart.
And
what a dick, right?
Yes.
It was like mid-sentence, and he's just like, by the way, blah!
Yes. So they're dragging Azrael. Reese and Cassian are like dragging Azrael into this throne room. Mor and Feyre are walking behind. Jurian's right behind them. And the King of Hybern and all of his people, and they're just gaunt and very cold and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And blood is dripping everywhere from Az. And so the King of Hybern is just kind of like, oh, fancy seeing you here. And has the cauldron now next to him. Mm-hmm. And is kind of playing with his food, basically. And out comes who?
You tell me.
Tamlin.
Yeah.
Tamlin made a deal.
And Lucian, but yeah, Tamlin.
Tamlin made a deal with the King of Hybern, which I don't know why I was so shocked, because we know his dad was friends with them.
Well,
he grew up with Amarantha.
We already talked about how the letter home looked like a forced letter, and that he's a rageful, narcissistic guy. So of course he thinks he's saving Feyre. He thinks that the bargain took over her mind and she doesn't know what's going on, and Rhys is making her do all of this stuff. So he's like, yeah, King, you can use my lands to get from Perinthian into the human lands if you can give me Feyre back, and she'll work for you. Did you notice that?
Oh, yes.
And she'll work for you.
And she was just like, I will not go back with you.
She was like no means no.
She said, I'm not going back with you. I left on purpose.
Yeah.
And she stepped too close to Rhys, and they could smell the mating bond. Everybody's like, uh-oh. She's like the mate.
Well, no, Tamlin's like, what'd you do? What did you do to her? He's still not really buying it or anything like that.
And she was like, if you take me from my mate,
yeah,
I will destroy you. I will destroy
your court, everything.
Everything that you love, I will destroy you.
And then the king just goes, no. No one's going to destroy here. We have something else we're doing. This isn't even about you guys.
I've got an ace up my sleeve.
Yeah. Don't you like how he shifted it right away?
Yeah. So out comes Elaine and Nesta, tied up in their nightgowns. You can tell they were taken in the middle of the night. They're dirty because they struggled. Nesta looks like a wildcat. Her hair is crazy because she just fought like hell.
Yeah.
And then Elaine is there just sobbing to herself.
And then the queens.
And then the
them
queens.
Bitches.
So the interesting thing here though is Tamlin didn't betray Feyre for it wasn't the queens either. The queens actually said, I won't betray other humans like that.
Right.
It was
my auntie. That fucking cunt.
So Tamlin didn't realize that. So first of all, he's
in
pissed.
His credit, yeah, he's pissed as well. But the way the King of Hybern got her was because he painted a future without high lords where the high priestesses ruled Perinthian. And she's like, oh, okay, you just want these two humans? So he wants to use them as a test to the queens. The queens did all of this. The whole attack on Valeris, eternal youth.
Eternal youth and beauty. So
very vain.
Yes.
And now he's going to use Nesta and Elaine to show them it won't kill them.
I got your back.
Take Feyre's sisters. They'll be great tests.
Yes.
She's assured me they're strong-willed, so they'll survive.
Yes. So everybody is pissed. Jurian wanted to know Rhys's friends.
And wanted Rhys to die.
And he just shoots a little of the cauldron magic because Rhys was angry and just tried to go after it. Rhys shields, Feyre. Cassian uses his wing to shield Azrael. And his wings just get shredded.
I know the description of it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, so he can't move off the ground.
Right.
Azrael's hurt. Mor is trying to keep both of them standing upright.
Well, Mor tried to go, and the King of Hybern stopped her. And he's like, you guys might want to stop because that bloodbane is going to go straight to Az's heart. So cool your shit.
Yeah.
I'm in charge here. Basically is what he said. Knock it off.
So Elaine gets pulled up, and he's like, let's start this test.
Yeah.
And Nesta's going crazy back there. And he has the nerve to be like, do the pretty one first, which is just rude.
It was rude.
Add insult to injury there, bro. That's just mean.
I mean, he's not known for his niceties.
No, but come on. So Elaine gets dropped in pushed under. And the whole thing with this is you have to have a strong heart, strong will in order to be able to survive. So you might die. So that's why he needed both sisters, because one might die.
It wasn't looking good for Elaine going in. I was a little worried.
Yes. So the cauldron gets dipped over.
Yeah.
Elaine comes out. Luckily, she starts coughing. She's alive. She's breathing. She looks up. The most beautiful high fae you've ever seen in your life, Elaine. And she's like dripping wet. Her nightgown is like see-through because it's so wet. And she just like looks up. And Lucian's like, don't just leave her on the floor there, and goes and puts a like coat over her, right? Then he's like, the next one, please.
Yeah.
And Nesta is going crazy. She's like, F everyone here. And she gets shoved down aggressively.
Before.
She has a one hand out and she points almost like a death curse at the king. Like,
I'm coming for you.
You're
bitch.
getting it, bitch.
Oh, I loved that.
We all knew that Nesta would survive because she's got an iron will, man.
Yeah.
And so then she gets luckily thrown out. And the first thing, she pushes Lucian off of Elaine and like grabs her sister and like protects her sister who's still sobbing on the floor.
I did think that was hilarious. So she's like, get off her.
Yeah. It's like she just went through this trauma and Elaine is still on the floor crying, and she, like, her first instinct was like,
get off my sister with her see-through nightgown.
Yes.
You perv.
And then what does Lucian say?
She's my mate.
So, the mating bond slipped in.
And I like how they're like, Elaine just kind of looked at him. Like,
Well, she doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you're speaking gibberish.
And Nesta's like, the hell she is. Get off of her, you pervy.
Yes.
High fae. Rhys goes, if you like to make bargains, and he starts to make a deal with Hybern. Feyre instantly is like, no, he can't do this.
Feyre's taking all this in and is like, okay, this isn't good. And so she just starts glowing and glowing and glowing and glowing. And as she's doing this, she is unlocking the wards all around them. And she's like, okay, like just trying to distract. And she like starts screaming and she's like, Tamlin, is that you?
Yeah.
What happened? And so she starts acting like it was this miracle, like magical thing that like
This
Rhys
power surge and it, broke her out of her haze.
It broke her out. Meanwhile, it was a distraction and now the wards are down.
Yeah.
She still can't feel through the bond Rhys or talk to him or anything like that. So she's like, please catch on,
But they
man.
can get
Please
out,
catch on.
right?
But they don't know that, but they can.
Yeah.
So she's just like, Tamlin, help me, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so Tamlin buys into it in a second because this is all he's ever wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And he just grabs her and hugs her and she's just crying like, don't make me go back, take me home. The King of Hybern's like, what's going on? And Rhys just like puts his hands in his pocket and is like, how did you get free?
I thought that was so cool how she's like, catch on, play a game with me. And he did. And he's like, how'd you do it? How'd you break it?
And so finally she's like, just no more killing. Just release me from this bond.
Yeah.
Let me take my sisters home. Just get out of here. And the King of Hybern's like, well, that was the last deal. So he like points his finger and it's actually excruciating because he is actually breaking this bond.
Yeah.
And it's just like blood curdling screams from both Rhys.
Both of them.
Feyre is like really leaning into Tamlin with it and really being dramatic.
Trying to throw. Take my sisters. Get my sisters.
And
Get
run.
out. Go.
The bond finally is done. Rhys is laying on the ground. Moore finally gets it and looks around, like winnows up, grabs the sisters, winnows back, and they all leave.
Yeah.
And Jurian's pissed because he's like, wait a second, my deal.
I got screwed here, guys.
My idea. And so Tamlin's like living his best life. Lucian is like my mate just left with the enemy.
Yeah.
Feyre's acting really sus because I saw her turn into...
No, he looked at her and he's like, why aren't you upset? And she's like, we'll get him back. But like...
We'll get him back, but just take me home, please, Tamlin.
Please.
And then the queens like start smiling and walking towards it like, hey, my turn.
Let me jump in with my floaties. Then the king goes, wait, where's the book?
And she's like, you're bad.
Your mistake. She literally looks at him and goes, your mistake.
Your mistake. Take me home, Tamlin.
Didn't you love the comment, too, about how his smell just didn't feel right?
Yeah.
Like, it made her almost gag
She
when
was
he
just
hugged her.
pulling back gags to be like, this isn't right.
I thought of you because I know how mad you are at him. That you were like,
I am very angry still. Well, even more so. Like, this is a turn back.
This is one hell of a cliffhanger for you.
Yes.
Like, she's going back to the Spring Court.
Yes.
Spring Court, not the Supreme Court.
No. Okay, so now we go to the Night Court where everybody just winnowed in. And this is what's interesting is now we're getting Rhys's perspective. This is the first chapter where we actually hear it from Rhys's brain.
Right. And Amren's like, what happened?
What just happened? What just happened? Moore's not there. And Rhys is like, can't answer. Moore went and winnowed the sister somewhere safe. And so finally, when Moore winnows back, she tells the whole story.
Right.
We got caught. She turned her sisters, like, every little bit.
The king broke
and she's
the bond.
like, they broke the mating bond, and now Feyre is at the Spring Court. And Amren's like, go get her now. Go get her now. No, you don't come back without her.
She's like, you can't break that bond.
And Rhysand was like,
you can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And he's like, something else. Last night, I did a thing. If he would have taken off her other glove and seen her other hand, he would have seen that I made her High Lady of the Night Court.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Moore turns around and said, do you mean I just left my High Lady with a bunch of enemies?
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah, your High Lady sacrificed
yeah,
to destroy Tamlin from within. Didn't you hear her tell him?
Yeah, we've got a fox in the hen house. Yeah.
She gonna do it. And she goes, and then what do we do? And he goes, go to war.
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum.
And this is why you really, really want to read the next book immediately.
Oh my gosh. That's the cliffhanger.
Well, and this is like the first taste of now we're going to finally find out what's been going on in the Spring Court.
Not the Supreme Court.
I was reading too much about the relationship stuff, so just Tamlin was going through my mind in the back of it.
All right. End of the book. Who's your favorite character right now? It's hard.
I mean, it's Feyre. I like the protagonist.
I think she really picked it up in those last 15 pages. Like, that whole plan is genius.
That's
right?
her.
I also, what I thought was very interesting is the switch to Rhys's
point of view.
So now we're in a dual chapter point of view because they're not together.
Yeah.
So it's like real evidence of the mating bond in the way now the books are being written.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
So I would say probably the whole sequence between Lucian coming to the woods to them like fighting the Highburn soldiers.
Oh, so just like the whole part?
No, it's just like the woods. Like when they were practicing in the woods over that 2-day period, all of that stuff happened.
Okay.
So I really liked, like, that was a lot of really cool stuff that happened from like 2 different fronts that they're fighting.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you?
My favorite part for this part, probably the cabin.
Of course. No. It was definitely a smirk while you read it.
No, but it was also Rhys's story. Yeah. Right? Of what the mating, all of that. Going into 55, I was already very sold and very connected to the characters, but I think that sealed it for me. Like, that hooked me. Mm-hmm. This is like, okay, so if these characters die, I'm gonna like be affected for a couple of weeks. Like, these are real people to me now.
Yes.
You know? So it was a lot of that. Outside of that, I just love the surreal. Like, every interaction and that little like pot stirring gossip queen. like just like, oh yeah, and also those flowers, like, that'll help your mate out too. Like, just slipping that shit in there. Yes. And she knows exactly what she's doing.
She did it on purpose.
It's hilarious. I find that to be awesome. What are you most excited about with this next book?
I really want to see Feyre. Like, what is she gonna do over there?
Yeah.
I'm like so interested.
Like, you're on the cliffhanger right now.
Yes,
like, we need to get this part going.
Well, and it's also why I made us do 2 episodes so quickly after each other, because I need to start the next book.
Yeah, agreed. No, I'm really excited. This next coming book is my favorite book out of the whole series.
I would say probably mine too.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to read about it. I'm very excited to talk about it. Lots of details. I think this is the book.
And then the 4th book.
I like the 4th book, but
the
that's fine.
5th book. Sorry, you can't see faces, but that was my spicy face.
All right, thanks for joining us as we talked about the final episode of A Court in Mist and Fury. And watch for our next episode where we are going to begin reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is both me and Marissa's favorite. Yes. So please follow us on High Tales Lit Sisters on Instagram, YouTube, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for talking High Tales with your favorite Lit Sisters.
Goodbye.
Bye.